happen to be my views, and, well, for the next hour, they're going to be the views of our good friend Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster. Bob, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing fine. It's a bit of a struggle, but I'll get there.
All right, fine. Well, anyway, of course, we're going to be talking about the financial situation that is sweeping not only the United States, but the entire world. According to the Oversight Committee appointed by Congress to figure out what the Fed and the Treasury Department were doing with all the money, and remember that it's not just the $700 billion that they got, and it was the so-called Troubled Asset Relief Program funds that were to be used to buy troubled assets. I mean, troubled asset relief, it was you buy troubled assets, but they decided not to buy the troubled assets. They decided to give the money to, or at least lend the money to Hank Paulson's friends on Wall Street and other banks, and then of course it was supposed to be lent out then to people who needed credit, because after all it was all done to actually loosen up the frozen credit markets. But the banks decided not to do that. They put it aside to use for bonuses for the executives. They call them cash awards now. They're not paying bonuses; they're giving them cash awards, and then of course for the dividends for the stockholders. But they claim that they're just, well, nobody knows what's happened to the money, and so they actually have an oversight committee appointed by Congress to find out, and Congress can't find out what they've done with all that money. It is not just the $700 billion; it's about $8.3 trillion that they've actually put out. And of course, where did the money come from? Nobody ever asked that. Where did the money go? Well, a lot of it they just won't tell. It's a couple of $1 billion, a couple of $1 trillion that they just absolutely refuse to tell the government where it went, because it's a trade secret. It would be a betrayal of national security. Or I figure maybe Osama bin Laden's going to find out. So we can't tell Congress where $2 trillion of the money that they've created has gone. Bob, what's this all about?
Well, I think it's about bailing on banks and Wall Street insurance companies and other voluminous enterprises. And yes, you're right. They wouldn't tell where all the money went and what collateral they received. The federal judge told them we had to do that, and they said no. It's trade secret, state secret, security. Same old dodge. And they're going to continue to do this because, in effect, America has a dictatorial government.
And I think people have to really understand that the Congress is irrelevant. In fact, Robert Rice said that back in 1999. He said Congress is irrelevant. It's the Fed that's really running things. Alan Greenspan's running everything. Of course, Alan Greenspan, member of the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberger's Council on Foreign Relations, part of the elite, just like most of the people who surround Obama today, and of course who surrounded Bush during his 8 years in office. They let us go to the polls to vote for candidates, but in the final analysis, they really cannot be effective. They're not even allowed to know where all the money's gone. And where's the outcry from the American people, Bob? That's what bothers me. Where's the outcry?
There is none.
Well, our job is to get people informed, and of course, to start working at the very grassroots. Every congressman should be thrown out of office who voted for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. I don't care what the justification for it was, how much money they were promised for their area. They ought to be put out of office. In fact, the one thing these people fear is they're going to be voted out of office, and I think we ought to do it. Bob, go right ahead.
Well, I think that the American people had that opportunity in the last election, and if I'm not mistaken, they reelected 94% of these cretins who were already in office. And so that's not the way it's going to happen. It's unfortunate, but I think, kind of like everybody is on their own. And I think that kind of situation is just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. People are just not cooperating with one another. It's no longer all for one and one for all. It's all for me. And that isn't the way society works, and nor a family unit works. And both of them are upside down.
Well, I think
50% of the people in the country who don't have a clue what's going on, even if you explain it to them, they don't think anything's going on that's wrong. They just think it's normal to have dreadful recessions every once in a while. And they don't. If you explain it to them, they can't understand the Fed's private and is working against the American people. And being independent, they can do just about anything they want. And they can't handle that. And they also cannot handle the fact that all of their politicians have simply sold them out. They think they're doing okay, and they're not doing okay.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting. So many people are going. The steel industry is going and asking for additional money. The steel industry is having trouble. The housing industry is asking government to appropriate money for them because they're losing funds, you know. There's no demand for new homes, and they've got all these homes built, and they can't sell them. And the bank is, of course, asking for the payments on the interest that, you know, for the loans that they took out. And so everybody's lining up to get the loans. Certainly all the state governments are going to have loans. They're going to have to start cutting back on services. I mean, more and more people are just going to the government asking for more money, and I don't think that the $800 or $900 billion that Obama is going to authorize is going to anywhere meet the needs of all these people. They're just going to have to create more and more and more money, and nobody ever asks where the money's coming from. And the only way it can be created, they just create money, and that's what they're doing over in Zimbabwe. You know, if that really solved the problem, Zimbabwe ought to be the most wealthy nation in the world today, instead of a nation where the people are starving and half the people have fled the country. And a $230 million a year inflation rate. Will it happen here? We'll be right back. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and our guest this evening is Bob Chapman. And anything new in the financial circle? Certainly, I think a lot of people are waiting for the inauguration of the new president, who's promised to just start a massive spending program to spend us out of the problem we're in. But how can he do that without destroying the value of our currency?
Well, they are destroying the value of the currency, and other central banks are doing the same thing. So the dollar has not backed off a great deal. It's dropped off on the USDX from 88 to 79. It's back up around 82 or 3 or 4 again. But that's normal in the trading of currencies. But the point is that all of the country currencies are going down because they're all fiat. And they're going down against one another, but more importantly, they're going down against gold. And that is where the final reckoning comes in. So the whole world has a problem with their currencies. And having 64.5% of your foreign exchange reserves held in dollars becomes very problematic, because the dollar is, among major currencies, is probably the weaker because things have changed. You can't depend upon America to be able to come in and save the world economy and be this engine of motion economically anymore, because they've just outlived their usefulness. They have this tremendous debt, and this corporate debt, and this personal debt. And you've all heard about it, and it just isn't going to go away. And will the creditors who own all of this Treasury and paper and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, are they going to be willing to take a 40 or 50% hit, a loss on what they're holding in dollars or reserve? I don't know. That remains to be seen, but it's certainly not a healthy situation.
Well, you know, of course, we're told that the debt this last for the year 2008 was about, about $400 billion. But the truth of the matter is They simply lied. I mean, they did not include the cost of the war. That's off budget. That's why it's not there. Didn't mention all the money that they stole from Social Security and Medicare. That's another couple of $100 billion. So the actual federal deficit this last year was somewhere between $800 billion and $1 trillion. And of course, this next year they're talking about $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion. People don't understand. It took our country 200 years to amass a debt of $1 trillion from 1789 up till 1980. 200 years to amass a debt of $1 trillion. Now, of course, this last year we increased the debt $1 trillion. This next year it'll be at least $1.5 to $2 trillion. And people don't understand we're moving towards the destruction of the value of our currency, and there's no better way to destroy a nation than to do that. And I believe they're doing it intentionally. I don't think they're doing it accidentally. I don't think they're bumbling idiots at all. I think they want to destroy our currency and create a global currency. What do you think, Bob?